Welcome to the Oracle GoldenGate YouTube video series. Oracle GoldenGate is the industry's premier multi-cloud technology for building real-time data fabrics, data mesh, and data replication solutions. With class-leading, high-throughput, and extremely low-latency streaming data, Oracle GoldenGate is in a league of its own. Thousands of customers in over 180 countries globally trust GoldenGate with their most important data, and GoldenGate is consistently rated as a top leader for data integration and enterprise data fabrics. One key reason that GoldenGate is one of the most successful integration tools in history is the consistent innovation over more than 20 years. GoldenGate has notched many industry firsts for modern event-driven streaming data solutions. Oracle GoldenGate is first and foremost known for its data event capabilities, including long-time leadership for data high availability, transaction replication, and change data capture. More recently, since 2015, the most successful areas of GoldenGate have been in the areas of data pipelines and stream analytics. Modern technology solutions demand real-time data ingestion, streaming ETL for low latencies, and best-of-breed analytics on data in motion. GoldenGate delivers modern time series analysis in a no-code development package with enterprise-class data governance, including best-in-class data security, data verification, and a rich metadata catalog. Another reason that GoldenGate is so successful is that it is truly a tool for all enterprises, supporting a huge variety of common databases, applications, NoSQL data stores, clouds, and messaging systems in a powerful low-latency data fabric. GoldenGate's modern microservices architecture is the foundation of real-time data events for the event-driven business. With an easy-to-use browser-based user interface and available cloud services for just pennies per hour, there's nothing stopping you from realizing the future today. Try GoldenGate for free. Follow this link for more information. And now, onwards to the video you came for.
Hi everybody, welcome to the GoldenGate for Oracle presentation. My name is Alex Lima. I'm the product manager for Oracle for GoldenGate for Oracle, and I'm going to be presenting today areas of the product that we think we should highlight it for this event. I'm looking into show you some of the high availability, some of quick recap on the 19 and 21C, and I made a little bit of modification on the presentations since yesterday because there was a lot of questions about microservices. So I put a few more slides on that. We are going to talk about that. So I wanted to start with this chart. Basically, was a talk point based on the result of the pool. We want to kind of introduce you to our lifetime support. So the current versions in support are basically at 12.2, which is an extended support until 23. The 19 is what we call the long-term release. It's on premier support until 2024, and our innovation release is 21C and is on premier support until 24. Like Jeff was saying, it's great to see the majority of you are on the 19 version. Some of you are on the 21. That's great. For those that are on the 12-ish, and I think I saw a few on the 18 as well. For those, we would like to recommend you to start planning to upgrade at least to the 19 version. So you are up to speed on the current version that we have in long-term release. So that was the main point for the pool, just to kind of introduce you to, some of you are currently out of support in some areas. So, all right. Okay, so what I had planned for today is basically talk a little bit about why do we think, GoldenGate is the best for Oracle database. A little bit of a recap on the release of 19C that we did back in 2019, and the 21C new features we released last year. And then I'm going to jump in the microservices architecture. I know there's a lot of people, wanted to know more about it and wanted to hear more about it. And we're going to jump into that for a bit. Then I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about high availability, following up that. And the last, hopefully, I can talk to you about what we were working on and the roadmap. And I had planned a demo, a live demo, but I don't know if we're going to get there with the addition of microservices slides that I put in last night. So, but if we do have time, I can do a little demo first. So let's get started. So I wanted to initially talk about this chart, which I think is every time I see this chart, it's kind of bringing back some memories and bringing back some memories in client situations than I was when I was hearing things that. But every time I look into this chart, I think about key factors, right? When I think about data integration, I think about three areas: data integration for database specifically. You capture, you route, and you deliver. Okay, I won't have time to get into detail on all of that. So I selected the one that I think is one of the most important one, which is the capture part of it. I believe everything else kind of falls into place once you do this piece right. Okay, so for Oracle databases, we have a limited options to these days how we can actually extract transactions that happen in a database, right? So we have first disk logs, which is basically parts of the physical file of redo logs, and a few CDC vendors use that methodology, which is actually unlicensed and unsupported. And honestly, I highlight here because it's very risky. We don't think it's a good solution. You have to kind of be aware of the security issues and some of the lifecycle risks, poor data type coverage, and things like a database patching and stuff like that. So definitely, if I was starting an integration project, I would try to stay away from it for sure. Next is the database triggers, and if the database triggers, if you talk to any DBA that you're going to introduce a bunch of database triggers in their database, you're most likely going to get a pushback because it's very intrusive. It's very, is known for, cause performance problems. And it's definitely not recommended for CDC. Definitely not a good option. But it's a product that is licensed to Oracle database. So you can technically, if you have the license for Oracle databases, you can use it. So a lot of customers I've seen attempt to do that with triggers, but I don't remember anybody being very successful. Moving forward to Log Miner, which is basically a component of Oracle database as well, and is licensed as a database enterprise edition that enables you to query online and redo logs, online and archive logs through a SQL interface. Log Miner it's kind of popular with ETL vendors and some other type of interfaces, especially because it's licensed with the GoldenGate Oracle database. That it's doable. People do it, but it's not meant to be a CDC tool. It was actually built to be sort of a single thread diagnostic tool, and it's a known piece of the Oracle database that we know it can cause performance issues. So we definitely think that it's not the best solution. Then we have to Extremes, which is a licensed product. Actually, we license Extreme as a GoldenGate license. So if you want to use Extremes in the Oracle database, you have to purchase GoldenGate license. And the main use case for this is ISVs, application partners that wants to build their own replication tools to support, high-speed CDCs from the Oracle database. So it's an option, but what Extreme is going to do is going to pull out and throw it in. Between that, it's up to the vendor to deal with the, all the ins and outs that we GoldenGate already did. It's there for you, right? So it's possible. We do license, but we think our product is more complete. It's faster. It was built in conjunction with the Oracle database team. We are part of the same group. We interacted to each other every single day. So when we talk about, I need something from the Oracle database for this use case that we have, we go talk directly to the engineer of that feature inside the Oracle database. And we have that open relationship that make us, which I believe is the best CDC tool available in the market for Oracle database. We have a white paper that you can download, and that white paper is an extensive go into detail about all these 5 options here. It talks about in details the pros and cons of each. I just gave you a very broad, high level overview. We have this graph. I just put this here as a reference, but we have done this comparison for other presentations. So this presentation will be shared with you. So I just put it here for your reference in the future if you want to take a look. The other part that is very unique to GoldenGate, and this slide you probably saw yesterday on Jeff's presentation. The other part unique is that GoldenGate can be deployed as a hub and as a mesh. Our other tools, they work this way. We feel our recommendation is that the hub configuration, it's probably going to meet most of our customer requirements. And we recommend, if you are looking into deploy your first GoldenGate, definitely the hub is something that we would like you to look first. And if that does not meet your requirements for some reason, then we have the second option, which is the mesh environment that we can talk about, that we can manipulate data in a sort of a, multi-master mesh deployment. The big advantage of the hub, it's, the manageability of it. There's a lot less overhead in terms of managing a system that is everything, inside one container. Well, of course, you can have more than one, but, if you have like 5 deployments in one hub, it's better than have 5 installations of GoldenGate that you have to manage it as well. So we feel that this is also one of the reasons that our product is above everybody else in the market. So let's talk a little bit about 19 and 21C features. So 19C, which is our long-term support, was released in May 2019, roughly around that at the time. And it was a final patch set of the 12.3 database release, GoldenGate release. The 12.3 was a big change for us. That's when we introduced microservices, but that was an innovation release. So the 19 is the final patch set of the 12.3. So huge improvements when we moved to 19. Integration with Keynote, target initiate paths, which means that you can initiate your connection from the source, from the target to your source in case you have, network restrictions, let's say to go from your on-prem to your cloud environment, but you cannot access your cloud from outside. You can go ahead and create a target initiator. So you initiate your connection from the cloud and pull data from your on-prem. We definitely added a stronger password verifier, changed the defaults to TLS 1.2, manage profiles, auto restart, auto start. That's actually a very nice enhancement, I think, because in the past, if you think auto start was all or nothing, and now you can kind of segregate that with profiles, which is really nice. And I really like that when it was introduced. So performance, performance is you should expect that every release that we have in a new version, we will be working on improving the performance of especially our replica. So in this case here was not different. We made some improvements. We noticed that advancements in our mappers, in our appliers got better with this version. Remote capture to tolerate high latency. We improved that in a way that the remote capture used to work exactly the same as the remote apply with an acknowledgement back, in more in a sync mode. We removed that requirement for the extract, and it works more in an stream fashion, more of an async type of thing. So that actually improved performance of the remote capture quite a bit. Easy to use. I mean, the software upgrade procedures. I mean, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it in another slide, but we can beat how we are upgrading GoldenGate these days. It's pretty simple, and we made improvements to the hardware tables, adding information from the extract when it was started. So that kind of helps with diagnostics and issues if you have. And last but not least, cross-engine support for the hub. So in the past, when you created a hub and you had to access remotely, let's say you had a database on AIX and your hub had to be on AIX. That limitation was removed with 19. Now you can have an AIX database and your hub is on Linux. And last, better defaults to eliminate the need for us to put parameters on our parameter file. Now the most common and required parameters, they have default value, and initially we do recommend to leave it as default unless you need to change it for some reason. So 21C, when we got to 21C last year, we released a few enhancements. So this one it's actually something that I really like it. It was prior to 21. Every time you need to install a GoldenGate for a database, you had to install one for the database version. So let's say you have a 12C and a 19 database, and you want to extract from both of them. You had to install two versions of the 19C GoldenGate. You had to install one for the 12C, and you had to install one for the 19C. That was removed in 21C. We made improvements. Now we have everything packaged in one software. We have all the libraries that need to connect to each of these databases pre-installed, and basically all you have to do when you log in these days is, if you log into the server itself, you still have to adjust your environment variables, but from the web console or from the REST APIs, all you have to do is pass your connection. That was a huge improvement. in my view. So again, make sure that your environments are correctly set. If you have anything hard-coded on your extract files or replica in terms of set environment, set environment, Oracle Home, Oracle Seed, you have to make sure you modify that. But other than that, it should be good to go. This was also a great feature that we introduced. Before 21, when you had to include a new table in an existing replication, what did you have to do? You had to, first you had to modify the parameter file if this was not into the wildcard, let's say if it was another schema or something. So if it was not in a wildcard and you need to include a new table, you had to modify that. And then you had maybe to schedule an outage because you need to bounce your extract. Well, for a lot of customers, that bounce was problematic because it requires an outage, and in a lot of places to get an outage, it's difficult. You have to go through a change process, and it's difficult. So we resolved that problem by removing that dependency of having to bounce to add a table to a replication by enable the capture at DDL create or alter table. So you still have to put the initial enable auto capture equal Y in the parameter file. But once that is done, every time you need to add a new table, you have to either create a table with enable logical replication or alter the table. And that's going to start writing the transactions in the trail file. And then, of course, you have to initiate the table and do all the other parts. But in terms of capture, it's going to stop. Oh, I went backwards. Kerberos authentication support. It's a very similar solution as OS authentication for the database. Basically, you can get into GoldenGate without putting username and password once that's configured. So all you have to do is put a / and you put your connection string, and then you say no password on your credential store. So these last fields are, a little bit probably, maybe smaller changes, but nevertheless very important for, different clients. It depends who is working with this changes, but definitely integration with OCI KMS. It was one. A key vault was introduced for on-prem on 19. Native JSON support for database 21. Automatic CDR enhancements. I mean, this to me was a big one. Because I have worked with many customers that need some of this resolution, and early timestamp was a big one because some business cases. I always think when I talk about early timestamp, I always think about airline seats. I don't know why. Maybe because I travel a lot. But airline seat, if you have a conflict, two people trying to select the same seat at the same time, you wanted the first one win, right? As a business rule. So we made some enhancements on that. Partition filtering is another one that now you can capture a partition or even exclude a partition if you want. Include tag is similar to exclude tag and set tag. This is just an addition to that feature. I thought it was a good addition too. Last few one here. DB unique name, that's we added that to the trail file, to the heartbeat table. That's important for a high availability environment. So we added that to add support for that. Support for large DDL. Enhanced capabilities for parallel and integrated replica reporting. That was actually a very good enhancement as well. Now we have a lot more information about the tables in the report files once the catalog reads those information. So it's a great feature. Reduce burnout on the boundary recovery. If you remember in the past, when you start your extract and there's a long transaction, it looks that the extract is hung, it's not doing anything. So we fix that now that, you know, as if you are into a boundary recovery, the extract continue, and you can see that, you know, with the information. And last one for this is the ability for us to create. This is more on the microservice side of things, but nevertheless, it was an enhancement in 21. So basically what this is you can create a Postgres or another one, MySQL deployment in an Oracle managed service. So let's say, for example, that this service managed, it's running under the Oracle home, and you have an Oracle deployment. You can add another deployment, but let's, in this case, I'm going to give you an example, Postgres. So that simplifies, it potentially simplifies the environment. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about microservices specifically. So what is GoldenGate Microservices? You know, it's basically it's a seed-based service, fully encapsulated. So which means is we don't use any dependency on servers or on web servers. We have everything built in within the microservice architecture. We have other products that you're going to hear later on. I talk about it that have a dependency on WebLogic and do that, but our microservices don't. So we have 4 different services. It's microservices. Each of one of them has a purpose. We have the admin service, the distribution service, the metrics service, and the receiver service. And I'm going to talk about each of them in a minute. But just to give you an overall picture of it, each service has a purpose, and the service manager is responsible to manage the entire deployment area. So it manages, everything related to all the deployments. It's the service manager. Think if we were to deploy this in a hub environment, you would have one service manager and 4 services for each deployment. Remember a minute ago, I showed you 2 deployments, one for Oracle and one for PL/SQL. Okay, so if we were to do that, that means we would have 4 of each, 4 for the Postgres and 4 for Oracle. So this picture here is to kind of for those who are into classic, it's still in the classic architecture and have not experienced with microservices. So what this picture is showing here is the components of classic that are not that has been replaced with microservice components. So for example, the GDSCI and the manage were replaced by the admin server. The pump was replaced by the distribution service. I have a typo here. So the collector has been replaced by the receiver service, and GDSCI and manage has been replaced by admin service. So that's a typo here. So I have a picture of the service manager for those who haven't seen that yet. So what service manager is basically what I was describing a little earlier. Is the watchdog for the entire deployment area. So here in this scenario, I have a deployment called West, and I have one service for each of the services: administration service, distribution service, performance service, and receiver service. And each one of them have a dedicated port to it. Administration service, basically what it does is manage all the configuration and all the replication scenarios of so basically it's your extract and replica, everything related to your replication, with the exception of your distribution path that is created in the distribution service. Everything here is managed by this service. So you can create, delete, stop, start your extract and replica, manage your checkpoint tables, credential stores, everything can be done from here. And then we have the distribution services, which basically it's the replacement of the pumps, meaning that it reads from the trail file and route it over to destination. The big difference between the pump is pump was a single threader, and the distribution service is multi-threaded. Plus addition, we introduce also, now you have security. You can you can create certificates to sender. It's a full security communication between your source and target. That's one main difference. We didn't have that with pump. All we had in pump was encryption. And so that's a big change. Now, the only time that it's not available that you could do it in the pump is the ability to do data transformation. But honestly, with all my years working with GoldenGate, I've never seen a client that did transformation of data during the transmission. It's always been either on the extract or on the replica. I don't think I ever seen anybody doing transformation in it. So I don't think that's a big deal at all. So the receiver service is actually the other part of the distribution service. So it receives all the information, all the trail files from the distribution service and writes to the target local trail file system. Okay, so I wanted to show you it here. I'm going to go back one slide, so you can see that I'm in this particular deployment, which I call West. I'm on the distribution server, and then if I go to the next one, then I'm showing the receiver service. I'm on the East deployment, but I'm also showing the same thing. Okay. Performance metrics, basically what it does is a collection of metrics of all the deployments, all your processes. You can see that I had a parallel replica, and you can see all the appliers here. You can do everything from the web, or you can also automate that with your REST APIs. Okay, so we have changed, because we changed the structure of how we install and deploy the software. We also had to change, some all the files location, right? So this chart here is just to give you, an information where things are. Generally speaking, it's more of information. So you can see that, the only thing that is not in the deployment home here is the SQL scripts. That is actually the only thing that goes into the Oracle home, meaning the software home. To me, Honestly, this is probably the best two slides that I have today. One of the biggest thing about, microservices, on top of everything, on top of security, is the ability to manage all your infrastructure, all your GoldenGates remotely, basically. In the past, with the Classic, in order to manage each of your infrastructure, your deployments, we didn't call deployments at that time, but let's say that your GoldenGate instance, you had to log into the server and you had to do all your work there, with some exception that you could get around it. But generally speaking, you had to log in locally and do it. With GoldenGate Microservices, you have three options. Basically, I mean, you have more options, but out of the box. That's what I mean. So you have your web UI. I already showed you a few slides of it. This is like the login page. You have your admin client, which is the replacement of your GGSCI. For those 80+% there that are very familiar with GGSCI, don't think that moving to microservices is a huge learning curve. There are some aspects that you do gonna have to learn and adjust. Yes, I just mentioned this right here, which is gonna be different than all your dir.prm, dir.dat. So this is just one example. You will have, but one of the important things to get out of this is your command line commands, your parameter files, they are, for the most part, very same. I mean, there are a few differences. Let's say in here, when I added this extract, prior to that, I had to register before, and now it's after. So that's one thing. But if I have my 10, 15 most used commands in GGSCI, I test all of them in here, and they work just like in GGSCI. Now, the output might be a little bit different. There are some things here and there that is different, but the command itself works the same way. And the third, and it's probably my favorite, is the REST APIs. So for those out there that like to automate things, this is the best thing ever. So I just have an example here, and if we have time, we're going to be able to run this. But I just have an example here how to create an extract, right? So and as you can see here, you can script this the way you want and automate all your environment pretty nicely. I mean, you could do it before with OB files and all that, but this is a lot better. So those last two slides, if you didn't know if you like microservice or not, those two last slides for me was enough for me to migrate. So let's talk about your deployments and how you do upgrades. So this is another great feature as well. I was talking about a couple of slides that we changed the file locations and etc. because the files now are located into the deployment file system. So we install GoldenGate on a sort of a read-only file system. So let's say you install on a U01 file system, right? And you create your deployments on, let's say, for example, U02 or U03, right? So when it comes time for you to upgrade, you can create another home here with, let's say this is 21.3. You create another home and patch to 21.5. And now you have to do is change those links. It's pretty simple. I mean, we did that back in the classic days a lot with, with all the dir directories into a share file system, and we create symbolic links. But that was more of a customized thing in each customer. This is kind of out of the box, right? So that makes your management of your patching a lot easier than it used to be. And how do we do that? Okay, so to make it even easier to patch, now you can go to the web UI. Let's say you want to patch for 21.3 and you have installed 21.5 and you have installed that in a secondary location, out of place. And then you come here inside your service manager, you go to your deployment. If you remember, I had a link for the deployment there on the service manager that brings you to this detail page, which it tells you where is your deployment. I was just mentioning U02. And let's say you install this new home on U03. Okay, so then what you do is you modify here, you change it to U03, you save it, and you bounce the service manager, and that's it. And that's your upgrade or patching, depends on what. And you can do the same thing with a REST API. You could go ahead and call the REST API and give the new home and just put the start or restart. It's going to bounce it. I forgot to put the username and password here, but you get the point. So this is pretty cool too. I love this. Secure. We can secure the deployments and with SSL between the two deployments. Let's say on-prem to cloud or two different data centers that you are replicating to, and GoldenGate supports reverse port proxy, and what it does is facilitate the communication through one port. If we didn't have the reverse proxy in the middle, we would have to open 5 ports, one for each service, which I put server again, one for each service, and one for service manager. You can also connect to a classic architecture via SOX proxy protocol. This is another little enhancement. I shouldn't say little. It was a very good enhancement. Prior to 21, you had every time you open, you went to the, let's say, to your service manager, and you click one of those ports, it would open a new tab. For every service, it would be a new tab. And in 21, we combine everything in one location, which it makes navigation a lot easier. Heartbeat history, that was a great enhancement as well. Prior to this, in order for us to calculate this, the lag between the very source commit to the last commit on the target, we would have to manually kind of run a query, a report, and you could see it. Now, with this enhancement, we can actually see this in the admin server, right? So you can go to your processes. In this example here, I cannot see it, but let's say this was an extract, E_19C, and you press the heartbeat link, and you can see this. And this kind of shows you a little bit of history of your heartbeat, of your lag. So basically, you can see your lag over time. So if you had a big spike, you can come and see. And then the color scheme kind of tells you where the bottleneck was, or at least, it can tell you where, how is it performing overall. How am I doing on time? 47, okay. Okay, another great feature is we simplified the certificate management to the web UI. Now you can, if you go to the service manager, you can go to the certification manager tab. You can barely see here, but you can go there, and from there you can view, you can replace the certificates, you can add multiple certificates. So you can, we made it a lot easier for you to manage your certificates, and you can do through the web UI. So benefits of GoldenGate Microservices. I mean, I think you saw a lot already. It's definitely the strategic direction of the product. There's no doubt about that. That's the direction that we are moving. We've been talking about this for the last few years, actually, and that's the direction. So that's one reason. Other reasons are, I talk about security. I mean, before we didn't have security. We only had encryption, basically. Now we have role-based access controls. You can actually, there are actually 4 roles within the web UI that you can create a user with any of those roles, and you can grant to somebody just to come and see a read-only if you want to. So there's 4 different levels: the security, I think administrator, operator, and kind of read-only. So that's a great enhancement that we have on microservices. Definitely the SSL is definitely something that it's important today. It probably was not so important 10 years ago when everything was on-prem, but in this day and age today that we are thinking about moving things mesh over, cloud to cloud, that's very important. And that's why we made all those investments. Multi-threaded distribution service, talk about the pump being a single threader, distribution is multi-threader. So that's very important, for performance. Mesh and hub environments, remote configuration, the fact that we can manage everything remotely, it's very important for, if you have your entire environment in microservices, you probably can create some sort of a management console, a management environment that you can control all your GoldenGate microservice environment from that central location. So if you have like a 5 DBAs on your team, instead of having everybody access to all the servers, you could, maybe have that centralized place to manage your environment. Run deployments on Docker and Kubernetes, Jeff was talking about this, and yes, we can do that. And we can also do on DB, still can do on DB service as well. Matter of fact, if we run I have my Docker running on my laptop. If we get to the demo, which I don't think we will, but I could show you. Definitely, the product is still the same as it used to be in Classic. What runs under the covers is still the same product. What we did was enhance it, a lot of features around what was already a award-winning product. So if you are a microservices and if you are a microservices and wants to know what it takes to it, you're going to have to learn, those additional components. But again, if you go to a admin client, you can most likely do everything that you currently do in a classic architecture. Better interfaces, I just talked about those interfaces. To me alone, those interfaces was already enough reason for me to migrate. And of course, you can go back and forth between classic and microservice. You can replicate between those two. So let's talk about high availability. So we did talk a little bit about features. We talk about microservices. Now let's talk about how can we make this environment high available? Okay. This is I just put this here as a level set for one of the slides that I have on the MAA. But basically what it is an installation of GoldenGate in the database servers. So, back 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we started, this is what we did. We didn't have any other option. I mean, we had other options. It was just not popular. But basically, you have your extract, your trail files, your distribution service, email server, and receiver, trail, and replica on the other one. So just keep that picture in mind. So the other option that we were talking about is the hub. So if you have your environment if this is on-prem in this scenario, you have two database servers and you have your hub environment. Your hub environment, because you're not moving trail files around, the trail files get written locally, and the replica will pick that up and apply remotely. So the extract collectively remotely, writes to local trail file, replica applies to the target. That's the concept of hub. Now, in the very old days, people were a little bit worried about being a single point of failure, right? So for that, I have a slide that we have addressed that a long time ago, but we have a solution for that. But the point of this hub here that you have to think about, in this case, I only have one database in each side. But think about if we had 5 servers in each side, 5 database servers. If we were to this old model, you would have to install, another 10 GoldenGate installations, 5 in each side, right? Here, you can just create an extract for each of all the other 5 and a replica for each of those 5, and you still manage everything under one environment, right? You can probably create different deployments within this environment, one for each of those 5 other additional databases. You can do that, or you can use in the same deployment as well. It depends on your configuration. But the point that I'm trying to make is you can think about don't think about this just as one database. Think about enterprise-wise, how many databases you're going to serve, okay? And having a centralized hub, the benefits of having everything in one place. This is a picture of a mesh environment. It's not necessarily a hub, but it's an environment in each data center. So again, think about in the data center one, you have 5 different databases, right? You don't want to go install GoldenGate in the other 5. You have one central for the data center 1 and one central for database for data center 2. Okay. Now, one other thing you could do in this scenario, you say, Alex, I don't want to create another GoldenGate in data center 1. Can I create an extract here on data center 2 and extract remotely? Yeah, as long as you are within about these limits of round tripping, you can probably do that. And if you have of course your permissions and everything, but yeah, you could do that. What is kind of hard for us to do is if you put a replica, let's say you don't have this scenario here, and you put a replica here, and you try to apply remotely. Now that bandwidth probably it's going to be tough because you got to be under 4 milliseconds in order to perform well, unless your database is really quiet and have one update every minute. Okay, so that little story is just to level set for this here. Okay, this is Oracle maximum availability architecture that GoldenGate uses. So this is database-wide Oracle maximum availability. There are 4 levels of it. There's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So bronze is basically your non-prod test with a backup, a local backup or a remote backup. Silver, you kind of add a cluster environment in your data center, and you still have your backup. Gold means you have your cluster on-prem or on the cloud, and then you have your silver and you have your bronze as well. Now the platinum, that's when everything comes together. So you have your cluster to protect you against your site failures. You have your bronze for your backup. You have your your data guard for a different data center. So it protects you against a data center failure. However, it's an active passive solution, right? So GoldenGate comes in and makes it a platinum level as a high available, no downtime, and zero data loss. So how do we do that? Well, we use GoldenGate for a bidirectional or multi-master replication. You have a load balance for the user's connection that goes to one of each side. So in this case here, I'm talking about the traditional, that first one that we install on the database server, okay? So for the first two here, we require a shared storage. In this case, we use DBFS as a shared storage because it's inside the database. And if you fell over to your standby instance, your DBFS will fall over to the standby. And once you start your standby in open mode, that fell over, it's going to happen is it's going to mount that DBFS, and GoldenGate that it's pre-installed here, it's going to start that GoldenGate instance, and it's going to go and apply to start resyncing again with the P, in this case the P2. So that's the tradition. Okay. The advantage is, you can have P1 and P2 being the different versions, but you have to use DBFS for a shared drive, and in combination with data guard. This is when it runs in the host database host. Now, when you run a hub type of or a mesh type of configuration, when you have a cluster for your GoldenGate hub, and you have a standby cluster for your GoldenGate hub, and you have ACFS replicating from your primary hub to your standby hub. So if you lose your main GoldenGate hub, your primary hub, you fell over to your standby hub with ACFS replication. And then you reestablish the connection to your two primary, in this case, to the other hub. So that also requires a shared storage. ACFS in this case, it runs on separate hub mesh, that's what I was explaining. It requires active data guard, and P1 and P2 can also be in a different patch set. Now, the last one is the buddy style multi-master. This one, we don't require local data guard. We don't require shared file system. However, all the four databases needs to be exactly in the same patch level, right? And the way that we do this is by doing a downstream capture. So just a quick example, because we don't have a whole lot of time. So let's say P1 wants to replicate it to P3. So we create the extract right here, and we ship the logs, and the extract applies it. And that's the same for all of them. So it works in pairs, and we do have this inside Oracle. We have this working. So the advantage of this is that we don't rely on data guard. We don't rely on shared file system. We can do 100% GoldenGate zero data loss and zero downtime. If you want to learn more about all this, feel free to reach out to us, and we can, spend more time. This is like a conversation for, it's a 2-hour conversation just on this slide. So let's talk about, our roadmap. I think I have 8 minutes. So first I want to talk to you about Classic Extract. Classic Extract was this support in 21C. And it was deprecated in 18, it was supported in 19. Now, I just wanted you to pay attention to the difference between Classic Extract and Classic Architecture. Those are two different things. This is Classic Extract. If you go on the 21C web UI right now and try to create a classic extract, it's not available anymore. You're not going to see that option. You're going to see two options: integrated extract and initial load extract. That's it. So if you are using classic extract in any of those versions that we talk about it, 12.1, 12.2, 12.3, 18, 19, if you are using classic extract, before you go to 21, you need to convert to integrated extract. Okay? And I have a note here from us that you can look at it, how to do that. The second part of it is if you have a classic extract extracting from a standby active data guard, you need to switch to downstream capture. And I also have a note here for you to take a look at that. Now, this is the classic architecture. We've been talking about microservices, and 84% of you on that pool is currently running on classic architecture. And that has been deprecated as 21C. What deprecated means is in future releases, it's going to be dissupported. We don't have timetable for that. Most likely in the next version, but I can't say that for sure. But this is for you to be aware. On top of all the benefits I talked to you about it, which was very high level, of course, but on top of all that, you also have this, that it's been deprecated, that you need to think about it, start thinking about how to move forward with that. For that, stay tuned for the next session where Volker will show you a migration utility that we deployed last October that actually helps you to migrate from a classic architecture to a microservice architecture. So stay tuned for that demonstration. It's right after this one.